This is the Fifth Estate winning headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 7th of August, 2019, and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am Miss K, your host. Again, in case you missed it, this is Winning Headlines. Let's take a look at today's headlines. The Standard, mystery of missing 5 million primary school pupils. Daily Nation, scandal of MPs on a gravy train to the US. And The Star, YYT2 faces fresh charges over car sober scheme. Let's begin with this gravy train.
Yes.
I'm interested by the Dolly Parton picture.
Yeah, are they going to watch her?
No, they're not.
No, actually, they're going for a conference in Nashville, Tennessee, home of Dolly Parton and country music, as all Kenyan lovers of country music know. And it's a legislative council, conference. But when I look at it, it looks very geared towards the American public.
Yes.
And that hasn't stopped 85 of our MPs from going.
85 people have gone. Nigeria sent 20.
Largest delegation. I think Japan sent 6.
It's so embarrassing. It really shows where our priorities lie. And in fact, this trip has cost taxpayers 100 million shillings, which to me is
now that
incredible.
They're there, does the nation want us to call them back? In my view.
Also on the second last day of the conference, it was 5th to 8th August.
Okay, so that's a pragmatic response.
Guys, enjoy yourselves. Make sure that 100 million shillings is spent very well.
It's generally a bash. I think they went for a bash. So you're right. They should really enjoy
It's
themselves.
quite interesting. We're seeing all these people in government really living it up.
No,
I mean, DCI went on tour. They went to America. They went to Italy. They went to London. Joho is in America. He's living his best life. These MPs are in Tennessee. Maybe I should take up
even
a position.
Even high school kids go for funkies.
Yeah.
You know, everybody goes. Everybody needs a break at some point. Yeah. So guys, enjoy.
All right.
Enjoy Tennessee. And
I say we put this in the parking bay.
Yeah.
For this reason, I feel like it lifted the veil of my ignorance.
Yes.
Because without this headline, I would never have known that such a conference existed.
Yes.
I would never gone on their website and seen that there was really nothing much for Kenyans there.
Yeah.
And I would also not have known that a lot of my money was being munched away on bashes on the strip of Nashville.
At the end of the show, I'll tell you why it's not your money.
All right.
Put it in the parking bay. But we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down headlines for you. We ask ourselves, is this headline topical or is it speculative? Is it repetitive or is it groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy?
Yeah.
YT2 faces fresh charges over car sober scheme.
They will not let this man be great, will they?
And I actually think he's being targeted. And I sit and ask, is Waitito probably the only governor who has been stealing from public coffers?
Of course not. There was a whole list of people. In fact, some even sold their houses.
You know, I am not saying stealing is good or anything. But I think they are going at him because of his position of supporting the deputy president.
Okay, but what's the context of this story?
Context of this is Waitito came up with an initiative called Car Sober to make people in Kiambu drunkards, right, remain sober.
Wait, say that again carefully, because it sounded like you were saying something else. To make people in Kiambu drunkards. Say that again?
To make drunkards in Kiambu be sober.
Yes, there we go.
Okay. Now he spends 2 million shillings a day, making about 4,000 to 5,000 people sober. Now I think the bill has come to about 1 billion shillings. Now EACC thinks there's a little bit of misadventure there, and they think there is some criminal liability on Watito's part, and he wired some funds somewhere, and now EACC has taken a file to DPP, and DPP seems to be preferring charges against Waitito. So, I mean, I don't know. See, let him act.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea what he did. Something for social change.
Absolutely.
Whether he stole the money or not, I guess we're going to have to wait and see and find out whether that's true. But I do think there is a witch hunt. Yeah. There's a bullseye on his back.
The real thing here is let's wait for 3 years of all central Kenya. Let's see which county will be the most sober.
Okay. Toss it. Yes, I think we toss it too.
I have nothing more to say. Finally, the Standard, mystery of missing 5 million primary school pupils. Back to our rotation.
Yes.
Education.
Government started a project called NEMIS. Now, NEMIS is meant to audit the number of school-going children in Kenya.
And I think they've said this before, because they had a problem with NEMIS trying to get the school head teachers to put in the data from NEMIS into the system.
Absolutely. And this is after they did an audit on the number of police policemen.
And found the ghost policeman,
They had 5,500 ghost policemen, taking about 1.7 billion shillings away from the exchequer. Now they have
5 million ghost students.
Now you have 5 million ghost students, apparently. And the number on record is 10.1 million. So there's a shortfall of 5 million.
5 million.
But it could also be just that the head teachers did not put in the data on time, or the system was trying to figure it out.
Apparently, from what I hear, is the numbers from August and July have not been added up. So
I think the question I'd want to ask about the story is the standard being alarmist? Because if you're saying that there's now a missing 5 million students, which we all know simply cannot happen, that does not make sense. I think they're being alarmist and they're not interrogating the story as well as they should.
Therefore, we toss it.
I think we toss it.
Bring back that Daily Nation. Scandal of MPs on aggravated train to the US. I think it's our winning headline.
I support the headline and them enjoying.
I think it lifted the veil of ignorance. I wish they had written this story a couple of days earlier. But as you say, quite rightly, what do we do now? Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy yourselves.
Do we return them?
Yes.
Daily Nation gives us our winning headline. On to our next segment, the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria. We used to break them down for you. We ask ourselves, is the cartoon humorous or is it dry? Is it satirical or is it pessimistic? And finally, is it effective or just plain lazy?
I am so tired of these America-based cartoons.
Yes. But before you say anything, let me describe it.
Yes.
Right? Caricature of Donald Trump, US president, and behind him is a Ku Klux Klan. Have I said it right?
Yes.
And he's they're both thumbs up. All right. I think context of this is a double shootings that have happened in America. One is in Daytona, Florida, and the other one was where?
El Paso.
El Paso. And it's a white supremacist shooting any black and Mexican thing that they can.
I think Gado is trying to tell us that Trump supporters are racist.
Absolutely.
And I'm tired of this. We understand what's happening.
It's also not in the States.
This is also not important to us.
Toss it. Standard. Star.
The Star. Hey, UHURU,
You know, we've said this before. I feel like there's something about Ozone and Dula that keeps happening. Yesterday, we had a cartoon
UHURU
and the Wailers from Victor and Dula, which
guys,
I think we kept. And we missed something.
Duta
told us that we missed something.
Yes. Now, on the album, the name of the album was Uprising. What Ndula did was Ndula, correct?
Yes.
He put Surprising.
Yes.
UHURU and the Wailers. And then Ruto on the side. Surprising. Beautiful. Thanks for that.
It's a good reminder. Today, what do we have from Ndula?
Today we have Rasu.
From Ozone,
Ozone.
From Ozone.
They're the twins. I can never tell who's who.
Yes. And the caption is a song from Black UHURU called Solidarity. We walk on common ground.
You know
what we need. Solidarity.
You know,
I'll just say this: don't quit your day job. Just
don't like we're singing.
They're fantastic, but don't quit your day job. All right.
You know, before I said this, I'd never heard of this song.
But guys, there's one thing they are missing over here.
What are they missing?
You will never put a Rasta man without his tools. His tools.
The drinking of bangi.
That one. Yes.
I think it's implied. Look at those eyes. There's a hint of red right there.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I think it's an interesting cartoon, but let's see what Dula has today.
So put it in the parking bay, and then let's see what the cartoon twin has.
Oh, I love this. Right? Caricature of Mosa Governor Hassan Joe
on holiday
at the Beverly Hills, right? And he's taking a selfie.
Selfies.
And I saw it. He looks exactly like this, and it is yellow shorts. Right next to him is a Wakali Kwanza gang member with the same posture, but his is a machete. Next to him is our very own police force with a 100 bob note. They cannot help it,
and the caption says order of priorities.
Of priorities.
So as we said, Joho's in the States. He's having a good life. He was with Paris Hilton.
He's on summer holiday.
Meanwhile, in his own county, people were being killed last night, I believe.
Yes, they were.
In Bamburi, they were being hacked, by a gang, I think, called Wakali Kwanza. Next to him is a policeman, the police guys who are caught unawares.
Whose priority, I think he's trying to say, is money or corruption.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know a lot of the public was very unimpressed with the fact that he is living it up in the US. Meanwhile, his county is suffering, and then the least he can say is he's extremely disappointed with the act of yesterday, and he asked the police
what could he say? He was away from town.
No.
He's not allowed to go on holiday. Didn't you just allow the other guys to just
Not even
live it up?
that. Joko is not a policeman.
So what do you say about this cartoon?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's very funny.
I take a little bit of issue with Wakali in the middle because I feel like that reference to them...
The violence.
The violence. I don't know. I'm on the bench on that one. So this versus his cartoon twin.
No,
Toss it. This is our winning cartoon?
Winning cartoon.
We have double win today. Winning cartoon from the Daily Nation. Finally, what is our final thought?
And now, our final thought. Inspired by a book entitled How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Close enough.
Carnegie.
I asked for the third time this week. Can they say your name?
No.
There we go. Yes, as you said, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yes.
It's all right. So, so before the book was released,
I see you.
Before the book was released, many authors were experiencing a lot of great success in the self-help region of books, the genre.
Yeah.
So Carnegie began his career not even as a writer, but as a teacher of public speaking.
Yeah.
So he started teaching night classes at the YMCA, and his classes became very widely attended.
Yeah.
And so a publisher approached him and said, can we take these things that you say and turn them into a book? And since then, this book is noted as one of the most successful in American history.
Yeah.
And just like the other books that we've looked at this week, it has sold over 15 million copies worldwide, and to date still sells 100,000 copies annually, which I think is quite interesting. I think we might have some copies at home.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Everyone has a copy at home.
So when the book was published in 1936, unemployment in America was at about 19.6%. And it was also at the tail end of the Great Depression, which I think ties in very interestingly with the book we did yesterday, which was written before the Great Depression, and we're seeing the effects at the end of the Great Depression. So nobody was hiring, and those with jobs were very stretched to hold on to them. And in this book, it included a lot of sound advice on how people could ensure that they didn't get fired by learning how to win friends and influence people. So this book argues that kindness, which is often considered a liability in the workplace, if we think about this in the context of the 1930s, where manlyhood was a very big thing, he says that kindness is an asset rather than a liability. And he writes that true leaders should actually tread softly, and they should ask questions, they should be inquisitive, and he calls this book a book on action, and he says that it will increase your ability to deal with people. And I think one interesting person who we can see has benefited from this book is Warren Buffett. He went for Carnegie's sessions when he was 20 years old, and he says that in his office, rather than holding up or framing his certificates from his degrees, his master's, his undergrad, his PhD, he frames up the certificate that he received from Carnegie's public speaking seminar, which I think is quite curious.
It is quite curious. Well, I have to say this. Carnegie says that 15% of one's financial success is due to one's technical knowledge, but 85% is due to personality and the ability to lead people. So that was his inspiration behind writing this book. And in this book, he gives 30 principles, they are quite many, on how to win friends and influence people. 3 of them deal with how to handle people. So those are don't criticize, give honest and sincere appreciation, arouse another person's ego want. 6 of them deal with how to make people like you. I don't know. Well, here they say become genuinely interested in other people, a controversial one. He says smile. He says remember that a person's name is the sweetest and most important sound for them in any language, so always use people's names. And 3 others. Then he has 12 principles on how to get people to your way of thinking. And this kind of reminded me a little bit of getting to yes, because one of them, I think the 5th one, is get the other person to say yes, yes, immediately. But also he talks about an interesting thing. He says, try to be honest, to see things from the other's point of view. So that's interests. He wants you guys to have the same interests. And when you have similar interests, then you're more likely to have a better outcome. A better outcome. Then finally, he has 9 rules for how to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. My personal favorite was the first rule. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. And here he talks about 3 presidents, think Taft, Roosevelt, and Lincoln, and their approaches to leadership. And how, when they criticized or condemned, they got nothing back. And in fact, when you condemn a person, they're more likely to become set in their ways and give excuses for why they do it. As the media police post that looks at other people and criticizes what they do, I had a question for myself. I wondered, am I just going to make them set in their ways and not have them do anything back?
Let's pick it.
I say no, Ms. K. I think that we do a good job.
Okay. 2M,
what did you think about this book?
You know, this book, I think it's for sissies.
Really?
Yeah. So
selling 300,000 million copies?
15 million.
So what I did, I took this book and I flipped it. And I said, I have ways to make people, because it says 6 ways to make people like, or 6 ways to make people like you. Now I flipped it to 6 ways to make people want you. Right?
Are you writing a dating book now?
And that's in politics.
Okay. We should have front-loaded that.
Principle number 1, that the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. That I agree. Sit down, be silent, and sit like a don. All right? Second, principle number 2, show respect for the other person's opinions and never say you are wrong. I don't know about respect, but his lesson here is if you're going to prove anything, don't let anybody know it. Do it so subtly that no one will feel you doing it. That I agree with. But here is where I flip them. Principle number 3. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Now that is beautiful to a politician. William Ruto, I don't know whether you guys have heard William Ruto in rallies.
Yes.
He knows each and everyone's name, and especially his guest and his host. And he can say 20 of them just like that.
So how to be a better politician? Know people's names.
Absolutely. Know people's names.
I'm really waiting for you to get to the end.
But that is because it's for your own self-interest. You want them to support you. All right? Principle number 4. Be a good listener. Encourages others to talk about themselves, like a rehab. All right?
Which politician is this?
William Ruto. All right? Principle number 5, talk in terms of the other person's interests. Now, Kenyan politicians have this thing of saying, tumechaguliwa na wananchi tuwafanyie kazi. If you're a member of the public and you believe in that statement, you're not very clever. And this is because Roosevelt is to stay up at night, and because if he knows he's meeting someone the following morning, he prepares and he knows that person's interest. And here's a lesson. He says, the royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things or she treasures most. Okay, because you expect some support at the end.
Remembering that you're the same guy for us as you on there.
I want to flip 2M's argument. I want to flip his flipped argument.
Okay, you will flip it. All Principle number 6, all right?
Okay.
Make the other person feel important. You remember I told you taxpayers' money is not your money, right?
And trying to make myself feel important.
It's a political statement. And them saying taxpayers' money is actually meant to make you feel important. And here is why. The moment you pay government tax, it's not your money. It is in law. You have forfeited an obligation, right? You're not doing it out of your own want, okay? And here is, you didn't have a choice to pay it to government, okay? Now, if you don't have a choice to pay it to government, when money is stolen, okay, the thing you should be getting angry about is not money being stolen. It's the fact that you're told it's your money, and it never was.
All right, so as I read this book, I came across another book, a more recent one, written in 2019. And it is called Asking for a Friend. 3 centuries of advice on life, love, money, and other burning questions from a nation obsessed. It was written by a woman named Jessica Weisberg. So in this book, she takes readers on a tour of advice-giving books and columns over the past 3 centuries.
And a lot have been, because I think after this, what was it called? Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich. We had Norman Vincent Peale write a book about the power of positive thinking.
So essentially just the generations of self-help books that have followed. And in this book, she found that few people in the history of written advice actually have been qualified to give it. There is no PhD program and no certificate for it, which means that nobody, which in turn means that nobody is ineligible to give advice either. So someone like 2M, who is not a politician, can flip the the rules of a self-help book written by a man who had no right to write it in his own way.
I'm a political economist. I
All
can
right.
read.
No, please. I
can
want
read
to
this
Jay on this.
No,
So she
I
says
can.
she
I
says
can.
in this book that since 1961, which is when the first self-help column was ever written, we've lived in an age of unqualified people with megaphones providing disturbing instructions on how to live. So I think that as we go through these books, we also still need to be critical about these people. We know that Carnegie, yes, he was a public speaker, but originally he was a salesman. So this is a salesman turned public speaker who became a self-help writer, selling 15 million books, telling us how to win friends and influence people.
So where exactly here don't you disagree? Do you disagree?
What we're trying to say is that just like the salesman, you are a political economist turned media critic giving advice on how to win votes and get elections in your way. I don't think it works. This is Winning Headlines. Today we had a double win. We had a winning headline from the Daily Nation and we had a winning cartoon from Victor Ndula of the Daily Nation. Today we'd like to do a sad thing. We review books on this show and we have reviewed a beautiful book called The Bluest Eye. It showed about how we as Africans have a desire, and that desire is to be white. We want to aspire to an ideal that we cannot reach. And the author of that book, Toni Morrison, unfortunately passed away this week. We give our condolences to our family and we feel very saddened that a matriarch, a voice of our time, a person who wrote for us as no one else would have written for us, has left us. But her legacy will continue because in her writing, we will continue to remember the important words and the lessons and to critique ourselves for wanting or desiring to be something that we're not and aspire to be who we actually are. Have a great day and see you tomorrow.